of, so Pune does have the history of fitness and there are hills everywhere. So it's an old thing. So this 90 plus generation are people who grew up on, just running up the hill every evening or morning. Things like this. Really inspiring a lot of people I met.
Gauri ma'am,
Huh?
it's over 5. We can begin.
We'll begin? Okay,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
Yes,
We are
yes.
live.
Right. Okay, okay. Hello, everybody. Welcome to this week's edition of Dil Ki Baatein with me, Gouri Dange, a writer and a counselor. Over the last some 9 or 10 weeks since we started, we've been having a very interesting spread of questions that come up at this forum. Things that are literally Dil Ki Baatein, which may range from interpersonal issues between, say, a couple, or intergenerational issues between somebody and their children, um, matters of deciding about how to spend your senior years, whether to move, whether to reduce your exposure to householdering, many things like this, how to stay relevant, how to tackle change. Uh, a lot of questions have come from people in very specific situations. But what we do here is, with I talk about it and with the help of people present, we do look at the larger picture that comes up, the more universal issue that comes up with that specific question. So in that same mode, today's theme, this week's theme is finding the balance between being helpful to your grown children and yet remaining uninterfering. How to find that balance. So I'll read you the question sent by Kawaljit. So he writes, ma'am, I have been an accountant for 40 years, retired but still do some consultancy work. My children have recently got jobs and one of them is going to get married soon. They have requested me to help them with paying their taxes and some financial planning. To be able to do that, I asked for their bank, credit card, UPI, EMI, and other statements. I was frankly shocked at their level of spending, he writes. I do see that they have wasteful ways in terms of buying too many groceries, eating out, then throwing away those old groceries. Also, the buying of gadgets and electronics. When I tried to bring this up, my wife strongly advised me to simply not interfere and to stick to what they've asked me to do. I don't see how I can help them, frankly, and how to plan financially for them without touching the topic of waste, overconsumption, and planning for the future. This is really my area of expertise, Kamaljeet writes. This is really my area of expertise. And I have myself managed my and my wife's earnings and savings quite well over the years, which has helped us and our children lead better lives. Please advise if I should simply refuse to do their taxes and planning if I do not have the right to comment on their spending pattern. Now, this is a tough one. It's a tough, in Marathi, we call it tarevarchi kasrat, tightrope walk, to walk on a very thin wire, to keep that balance. Because, no doubt that if you have a good relationship with your children, if Kamaljeet's children have asked him themselves to help, obviously there is a certain level of trust and, mutual respect. So for him to simply refuse seems to be a very extreme position to take. Of course, if he really feels strongly, or like his wife is saying, be very careful, he could not refuse as in make a unpleasantness out of it, but he could maybe advise that they go to a very specific financial planner who he respects. That may take the whole thing out of his court, and yet he's uh, taking cognizance of their request and saying, who will work best with you? It could be this person. And that person could be somebody younger than Kamaljit, of another slightly in between generation, maybe between the parents and the children. This is one option. But since he says it is his core competency, it has been. So perhaps it's not a situation where he just refuses fully. But we can understand where his hesitation is coming from, because there are so many, for him, what he's written out, so many red flags popping up already. And should he say these are red flags? Should he not? Will he be authentically advising if he pretends not to notice what he thinks is, unwise handling of money? All of these questions come up in this situation. So, but the important thing is that being helpful without interfering, this whole construct actually applies not just to financial advice that your children will seek, or your friends will seek, or anybody close to you will seek, but in all kinds of life situations, you are constantly asked to balance between helping, advising, and interfering. And you just often don't know where one ends and the rest others start. So um, it's what we're going to talk about today, I think, applies not just to the specifics of Kavaljit's situation, but to our interactions with the younger generation across the board. Because we have seen more life, we have core competencies in certain things. We can see maybe where they are, they could, we can see pitfalls ahead of them. Um, but equally, I'd like to say one side thing here, that it is not necessary that just because we have lived that many summers more than them, we are automatically able to give them advice that is appropriate to them. So, some of the advice we give, whether it's in relationships or in finance or career guidance to our kids, we must remember that they live in an entirely new world, and the demands on them are very different. When it comes to, in Kavaljit's case, if we go back to the financial habits of his children versus the financial habits of himself and his wife, the world has changed. Maybe the earning power is much stronger, and also, yet youngsters are working with kal kisne dekha hai kind of uh, atmosphere. Will I have this job also? I don't know tomorrow. Will this particular industry survive? Maybe I've put in my papers to go to Australia. That may come up. There are a lot of things in the air, and there is impermanence much more than what maybe our generation experienced. And our generation not just experienced more permanence, we chased after it. The biggest important thing was for most people to, get that one solid job and stick with it, pensionable jobs, all of that. Maybe not our age group so much as our parents' age group, but even by our thing. And getting some of those tick mark things, get a house in place, savings. The saving instruments also were not so bewildering. We had some very fixed things that we were on offer. So we must remember that part of their world we don't know very well. So if you are good at, say, financial planning, it may be worth your while to understand the mahol in which you will be, in which they are earning and which they are spending, and in which they are saving, if at all. So it may be good to relearn and re-enter the compulsions of of money and how money works for young people now. Of course, there are some universal truths. Saving money is important. Cutting your coat according to what you have is important. However tempting and however common debt has become, or credit card debt has become, to be prudent about that. Those are fairly unquestionable principles. And yet, even a thing like first thing do is go out and get a house and start filling those EMIs, that's come under question itself. There are so many of our children's themselves as well as their compatriots who now are beginning to feel, I do not want to get tied up in that. I'll take a hit, I'll live a little impermanently, and I may, not necessarily buy a house and be tethered to that EMI. All of this is a balance even for them. If we are walking on a tightrope in advising them, they are also, maybe they don't realize it, we can see the tightrope, but they are also on a tightrope. And they're in a funny situation where sometimes they're on a very long leash. Suppose you're earning very fantastically right now, but it's a leash which can be drawn and tightened overnight for them because industry is open and shut, entire economies close down, companies sort of evaporate, startups take off fantastically or completely tank. So they're in highly dynamic situations. On top of it, his children are heading to, they will probably start families. There are those things still waiting in the wings to kind of happen to them. So he's absolutely right in being worried and a bit, wary also. But I also want to say again, this applies for all of us across the board. This was once said by Dr. Jaydev of the Yoga Institute, which Genes Life works with the Yoga Institute in Bombay, Santa Cruz, the oldest yoga institute in the world, they say. Genes works with them for fitness and yoga. Dr. Jaydev, who he's no more, but who headed the place, had once said in answer to somebody's similar query, that if you stop worrying for your children, but you remain concerned for them, that may make a difference in how you advise and how you communicate and how you come across. If you're just worried, you're already knitting into the process that I think you're incapable, so I'm worried for you. If it's concerned, you're saying, I think this is a difficult world, and so maybe I need to also be helping you. Not that tere ko nahi jamega, isliye I'm worried. Or you have bad financial habits, that's why I'm worried. But the concerns makes it slightly puts a filter between you and your grown child when you're concerned. So I think Kawalji's wife has given advice of just doing what they're asking for. That comes from a place of concern and responsibility without what she's, I think, warning him is to not jump the gun and say, I'll take all of it over. And while I'm at it, let me tell you what you're doing wrong. I think that is a very a no, however right you may be in your reading. So I'd say in this thing of trying to help without interfering, one of the things, sorry, one of the things I think if he can, or anyone in the situation can, put together a basic expenditure picture. You put it together. If they've not been used to doing, whatever it takes, Excel sheet, pie chart, whatever. Let them see it visually. And the numbers then the numbers will show. The numbers will come up. About what it takes to pay your tax, what it takes to save tax, what it takes to plan for the future, what is the percentage that you will, without overwhelming them. You may be very good at the subject and they are not yet ready for it. So you have to make it age appropriate. In a funny way, it's exactly like teaching a 5-year-old something, where you may know well before him that if he, if he continues trying to touch that hot cup of tea, he's going to get hurt. And how do you find a way to do it without each time just jumping with worry and saying, "Mat touch karo, ye hoega, wo hoega," awfulizing what can happen to them. It's a grown-up extension of the same thing, where you may know better, but you have to choose your actions, your reactions a little carefully, not to just be diplomatic, but to be more effective, actually. So it's important to avoid lecturing and definitely avoid getting into arguments. He'll have to, any of us, we'll have to really be put a kind of filter and a screen between you and your child. ये अपना ही है, इसको मैं कुछ भी बोल सकता हूँ, will have to go off the table. And however shocked, he has written the actual words, Kamaljeet has said, frankly shocked at their level of spending. Frankly shocked. And it's very important not to show the shock. It's very important. I think you'll just lose your audience if you talk like that. So I think one, especially if he's from a background of a finance background, it will come easier, is to come up with, like neuro-linguistic programming, come up with words from jargon, from the field itself, which they can relate to, which is things like saying, if you're showing him a figure, your children a figure, a representative of this expenditure, instead of saying, look at this is all just ayyashi, ये तो आप लोग अय्याशी कर रहे हैं, ये फिगर देखो, ये कम करोगे तो आपका इसमें EMI आधा हो जाएगा. You're making unwise. Be very careful about not using these words. I would say words like, acha, see here, there is some amount of financial flab here. I find people, younger people talking like this, they're being very careful and diplomatic. So I think that's very important to, I'm not talking about tricking your children into listening, but just seeing that the ears stay open. So it's financial flab. You're not saying you are overspending. यहाँ पे जो है, maybe we can do something with this flab. Kind of make it not all the time sound like you are doing this or you need to change this. But how could this be changed? And there's a subtle difference. Or talking about, giving positive strokes. You guys work very hard. I want to help your money to now work smart instead of your money having to work hard. This is what financial people tell us. So if you can say this, not that you are not smart. You're being unsmart about your earnings and your spending. Not that. But how do we get your money to do this? So certain sort of clever distancing from tu मैं. मुझे मालूम है, तेरे को कुछ नहीं मालूम है, या I know better, I'm scared for you, I'm worried for you. Just take that out of it, and as if you're giving a little small seminar or a lecture demonstration on money. To impersonalize it is, I think, very important. Impersonalize it. Not be cold and lectury, but to make it as if you're looking at some kind of textbook thing. Only if they specifically ask you. Suppose after seeing the figures, your children say, yeah, I know, I think I'm maxing out on my credit card too often. What do you think, if they actually ask you, what do you think I could do about that? There's so much advice you can give, including, I know some young people put their own check and balance, which they'll put a very stringent limit on how much they'll spend, their card will allow them to spend. Then you can come up with these suggestions. Then you can even, I feel, go so far as to, once you establish that you're working with them, neither are you working above them or you working for them. You're not just a humble servant who's walking around scared to say anything. It's not that tone either. You're working with them since they have asked. So it's important to avoid using words like sensible, not sensible, overspending. As I said, in Hindi, we use words like ayashi. In Marathi, we'll use words if we are saying udharepana. Udharepana is just like a runaway horse. It's so easy to come up with those words and to really sit tight. You may even prepare what you're going to say, as if you're about to give a small lecture to a class of 10 students, if you're going to sit with them. I think that will hugely help in them not closing everything down in there. Long back, I read a book called, it was a book for children. The title was How to Speak So That Children Listen and How to Listen So That Children Speak. And it was for, very little 8 and 10-year-old children and up to adolescents, I think. The same kind of stuff applies if you are called upon by your children to fix something for them or advise them. How to speak so that they listen and how to listen so that they'll speak. You listen in such a way that where they then feel free to say, yeah, I think I'm uh, overextending myself. Or yes, I think I have got into this Amazon addiction or whatever it is that they're doing. Allow that introspection to come out from them. Instead of you saying, here, sit down here, this, you are absolutely being very, very unsmart and unsensible. Let it come from them. So, in a sort of life coach way, Kawaljeet could hope to get his children to see. But how to get him to see? I think this diagrams and where the actual fat is, where it is. It's like also working in a gym with somebody who's come in who's overweight, and instead of cutting them, into pieces and saying, "यार इतने साल आप क्या कर रहे थे? Look at the size of your paunch. Look at this. Your knees are weak." Instead of sitting and pointing all that out, good coaches will not pretend there's no problem, but they will use words like, I think we'll concentrate on knee strength. Let's work with arms. I think upper body is important for you just now. Instead of saying, look at how overweight you are. Look at your pear-shaped body. Look at your, I see younger people working in gyms using all this very careful language, not to be cute and to become popular, but because they've also understood that it doesn't work to help. Somebody's come to you for help saying, help me with this. It makes no sense to tell that person how foolish they've been for the last 25 years of their life. In that vein, I would say there has to be well thought out language or suggestions, what debriefing, where if he allows you, then you say, okay, let's see, how many times do you ideally want to eat out? He's saying, he's written that I see in their bills that the grocery bills are huge. I see they're throwing stuff and their eating out bills are huge. This is a very, very common issue. On weekends, young people will go into a big supermarket and just madly buy stuff and convince themselves that they're going to cook at home. But they won't have the time, and then, stuff sits in the thing and somebody then chucks it. So it's perhaps important to be able to draw pictures, literally draw pictures for your children about where the flab is, where the weakness is. And I think it's important to sit and not give a grim picture of what is financial planning. Arey, fir abhi sab nasha jane wala hai, now I have to become a grown up. No, this form of adulting doesn't have to be, the end of the fun life as I know it. So it's important for us not to advise in this grim, abhi ho gaya, had your fun, abhi line pe aa jao. I think this is a sur that we must not pakdo ever, ever, ever with our children. You know, um, it's a guaranteed way that they will just stop listening. They'll accept, they will know that what you're saying is the truth, but it's so unpalatable. No, it's not. You need to sugarcoat it slightly. Otherwise, very unpalatable. And he's talking about doing work for them and having the kind of background where he could help them develop better financial habits. He's talking about that. And for that, it's very important not to, uh, what is it? Not isolate, what's the word? Antagonize. Just antagonize your children. It's very important not to antagonize. Again, you have to have good nerves where finally you may offer things and they may not do it. They may not do it. So finally you may find that there's still not so much prudence involved. And yet, if you at least are able to tell them, here, today, this month, tie your this up into this thing. You have this excess. Why don't you for 3 months in small bits? 3 months put in this thing. And I know a few people who help their children by also saying that after getting an idea of how much spare money actually there is in all this earning well but throwing it around casually, give me 10,000 rupees a month and I'll do some magic for you in 1 year. If you are the kind of person who knows small figures, maybe even smaller figures, something that the grown child doesn't think to. It's almost like, okay, Papa, here's some playing around money, take, do what you want with it. And at the end of a few months, you are able to show some growth. You're able to show that they've made do without that money, most importantly. It's not gone in the general, ayashi, as we're calling it. That is also a place you can aim to be at. If they will allow you to. Again, it is that it cannot be said in a challenging, you give me 10,000 rupees, you see the magic, you people are spending 10,000 rupees on one evening out. None of that. However much you feel it, write it down. You want to say it, you write it down, you talk to your friends, you talk to your wife, saying, these people are crazy. Suppose you feel they're mad. And then, of course, you go into that, my God, we had it so hard, it was so tough. We didn't have this kind of, dhila hisab and, spending powers. I think it's important not to go into that realm. It's understood. You may once say it yourself. His letter says it. Kawaljit's letter says it, that he's understood that this is a different mamla now. It's a whole different new game, money game with younger people. There's no need to keep going over it. The fact that your children come to you and say, can you help me with this? I feel that itself is a big plus. And you should capitalize on that and be very careful not to turn it into a abhi subah ka bhula aaya wapas kind of thing. Not crow over your kids for asking for that help. Another thing that I was going to say is, you know, what children see as controlling behavior can surprise you, So the controls have to be in their hands, in the sense of, you don't say on the 5th or 7th or whatever, like, come on now, let me see your last month's thing. You just wait it out and make it clear to them that I'm not going to ask. You must give it to me. So let them take a little responsibility of coming and being in that advice asking mode. Then it's so much easier to give advice because somebody clearly asked you. The children have asked him now. But overall also, otherwise very quickly, because they're busy and because they're young, you are in the position of being the nagger. Uska kya hua? Ye kidhar hua? You haven't shown me this, you haven't shown me that. You'll have to have a few rules of engagement. If I've got to do this by the 5th, I'll need this, and 10th, I'll need that. Very easy to say. For me, it's a game of nerves, I'm sure. Just like if you're watching a 5-year-old and cautioning her, not to lean too much out over something that she'll topple and fall. It needs nerves to not run and just stop her from doing it. So it does need nerves to advise without interfering. Interfering is so easy. No, it really is. Because you just take away that part of the equation where you are saying you're a grown-up, I'm a grown-up, these are your boundaries, these are my boundaries. You're saying, oh, you asked me for help, now I'll stomp all over you. तुमने तो पूछा है तो मैं अभी I will all entry passes आपने दिया है मुझे. नहीं है वो. There are no all entry passes to a young adult's life. So that's the part that needs the good nerves and needs other outlets if you want to be horrified, or you want to be scandalized, or you want to be just laughing at some of the stuff your kids are doing. You'll have to come up with an act where you're not doing it with them. See, when we go to a financial consultant or a CA, he's not laughing at us. He'll never say, you don't know what you're doing or what. How come this? Why didn't you do that? They have a certain front. They've accepted, okay, this client of mine has these habits. I can at best offer something for the next year. In that same mode, I think you can encourage budgeting in your children. Start with understanding what their needs are, which of their needs are legit, which of them are ayashi, um, which is how to focus on the principle behind it and not the specifics. So never talk about, acha, what was the need to go to this disco and pick up all your friends' bills? Not to get into that. Not to get into that. But the principle is, oh, that was a big hit. If you spent 20,000 rupees or 25,000 rupees, oh, that was a big hit. That's the principle of it, not the specifics of it. So how often can you afford to do this? So that you're going along with the person's, maybe your child is a generous person, loves to pick up the bill, but to bring in the principle of it, like how often can you afford to do this thing, whatever it is. Building an emergency fund. At 30, I'm assuming his children are around that age, about to get married, whatever, broadly. An emergency sounds like not my problem, kind of emergency fund. But how you could help them come up with this broad idea of a budget, and one thing which is just for building repairs. How we do building repairs, sinking fund. You will have to find creative ways to tell them to put aside. It could be just buying a good medical policy, as simple as that. Emergency fund could be just that. And so investing for the future, which could be EMIs, buy a small thing, buy a little studio place. Let's see what you could do with it later. If you think that goes with the lifestyle that your child you think is headed for. But also I'm saying to keep our ears and eyes open to how things have changed also. So some of the principles behind saving, earning, spending have changed, possibly. Keep that in mind and just put away that hamare time mein. My God, this kind of money, I would have done this with it, that with that. I have done all this, and that's why today you're standing like this. No need. No need, no, there is a need, but don't say it. Don't say it. There's no point, I would say. No point. You know? Responsible credit usage. It's a really tricky one. I see enough number of younger people who are appropriately cautious and scared and never borrow money, never withdraw cash, never do all the funny things with their credit card. Their credit card is just to make life slightly easier till the next month. That's all. Not till kingdom come. I know many of them who are fairly wise or have burned their hands and are now wise. But there are also a lot of people who just have not done the arithmetic about credit, as if it's some kind of freebie. So about how credit works can be something you can talk to them or make those diagram, Venn diagram, pie diagram, bar chart, whatever it is, how credit works. Is, I think, because you're so surrounded by people pushing you into credit, right? And it may be an inevitability to buy a house or something, but not to feel lulled into thinking life is very good here. As long as I'm getting, my credit card limit has been seen, my bank has enhanced the credit. There's no celebratory matter, actually speaking, That also, this seeing credit in perspective. And this one thing which I said in the beginning, which is consider professional guidance. Consider that. If you want to say, this is broadly what I think you should do, but let's give all of this to so-and-so who I trust to do for you. And then it can become just easier. And, being critical and controlling and all of them, it's so tempting to do when somebody has said, help me. If somebody comes to you and says, help me, it's so easy. Okay, sit, I'll tell you what you've been doing wrong all this time. not that it is not an invitation from them, from the younger generation, to say that to them. It is not an invitation. Unsolicited is also important, not to give kabhi bhi, like any old time, catch them and say, now you've told me, now sit here. Right now, this has happened, that has happened. So that's still in the unsolicited realm. They've not asked them, they've asked you for a broader thing. And one last thing I'd like to say is we have to be careful about enabling bad financial habits. If your children at one stage are then expecting you to fish them out from really bad financial planning, that's not his question. It's not Kamaljeet's question at all. That is not something that's happening in his family, I think. But I'm saying that this is on the same continuum where staying out of it and not advising, but then leads to sometimes you having to bail out your children, then you are fully within your rights to say well in advance that I won't be able to help with this. I'm managing my own. I will not be a burden on you, but I definitely can't pick up your slack. Again, to be said without mad worry and this will happen and that will happen and awfulizing what's going to happen in their future, but to be able to say it with a sort of detached concern equally for yourself and for the child who seems to be tottering on the edge of um, heavy duty credit debt. So, I think the overall theme of this is, of course, respect, autonomy. The respect and autonomy with which that your children have asked you, you're good at this, will you help me? That same kind of respect and autonomy has to be given back. And that can happen, A, when you're not just worried and fretting, but you're concerned. And B, when you are able to understand that this is a new era in which you're working, and everything that you think was wise and sensible, and what was clearly not wise and very reckless, that doesn't apply now. Certain things have changed. Certain labels only have changed of how people deal with money. That recognition also, if you keep, then I think that danger of becoming very overbearing on your children, that danger will be, I think, a little bit, you'll be safe from jumping into their lives too much, into their financial lives too much. One last thing, I think, like with small children also, once in a while, a pat on the back in a very stray kind of fashion, just saying, wonderful, yeah, wonderful you're earning this kind of money. Wonderful you pick up your friend's tab at the uh, pub. There might be some things which are larger than just the money, which are traits in your child which you feel are good. Wow, you really worked hard. You got a bonus on this. Lovely. So that relationship doesn't become when they present you their bank statement. It isn't that slightly awkward or frightened or distasteful thing of now my father is going to, bore holes through my lifestyle, look through with his X-ray eyes at me. That's, I think, a point to be careful about and to counteract with ease with money, ease in their financial situation. Be happy for them that they're earning well. Be empathetic if there's been a few bad months. So they know that you're coming from a place of concern and not neurotic worry about them. Okay. I think I've spoken for very long without letting anybody speak, but I had a whole lot of points about this, and that's why, if anybody, I'm throwing this open to people who want to. Did I get thrown out of the Zoom for a minute? No, I'm back. Yeah. So if anybody, my speaker is not. Mm. Yeah.
Yeah.
One second. One second, guys. Hi, sorry, am I? No. Yeah. I'll disconnect and come back.
Okay.
Okay, there. I think I'm back. Yeah, sorry,
Yeah.
something happened.
Yes.
Sorry, so I was saying, if anybody has anything to add, similar experiences, similar thoughts, similar doubts, please do.
I think one thing, Gauri, that we need to remember is to look back on our own financial histories and see the contrast between the early years of our, family lives or our childhood, and you can see. I mean, I
Your
know
point.
that my parents would be horrified by the amount of money we spent
Absolutely,
on a
absolutely,
regular basis
absolutely.
because those were simpler times.
Yes.
And there are times when there are things that are more important than money, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
Like my son had a very bad breakup with his live-in friend, and at the time he had to move out of their shared accommodation, and he found a place that he liked. And I have a very, very middle class soul, very the conjuice I am. But my husband said, no, at this point in time, he needs this house. He needs it to be that, yes, he has not downgraded himself in any way in his living. And
Yeah.
that little bit of confidence that, yeah, okay, it was a huge place for a guy and a dog. And
Okay.
the dog was also part time initially because they were
Ah,
sharing the dog. Finally, she
ah,
gave up on the dog,
okay.
thankfully, and bless her soul.
Okay.
So, and then he was able to indulge in his love for plants, which which is extravagant, but okay, fine.
Right.
You know,
Right.
so sometimes
Watching,
that
yeah, he will watch.
psychological benefit of
Yeah.
maybe paying an extra 20 or 30,000 grand a month
Yeah.
in the end,
Yes.
that helps.
Yeah. And but you're saying that as parents, you decided to absorb that and stay quiet and stay out of it, no?
Yeah, no, my husband was the one who actually was, yeah, go ahead. I
Hmm.
was like, oh my God, this is a palace. I mean, what do you want with
Ah,
such a so?
you're
That
saying
is in
not
my
just
head,
stay.
but I didn't say
Yeah.
it.
You're saying not
I
just stay
didn't
out of
say it.
it, but run
Huh,
with what you think, what he thought the child at that
yeah,
time, the young.
needed.
Yeah.
And another
Yeah.
thing
Yeah.
which my sister-in-law, who's 10 years older than me, and she's English, and they live, and she says the one thing that drives me mad about my kids is that they throw food out. Best by date, they can. She says we sniff at it. If it smells okay, if it tastes okay, we eat
Ah,
it. They will throw things out. The Best Buy is the biggest scam on the best before.
ah.
Best before such and such date is the
They say
biggest
that it
scam on the
doesn't
planet.
affect. It doesn't. Yeah. Correct. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, you use your common sense. She
Yeah.
says, "My God, that is the one thing which annoys me."
Yeah. But tell me,
Otherwise,
would you then would you keep quiet about it if you saw lots of uh would you
I
stay
might tell them that why don't you
careful?
just check it
Be
out?
careful. Be
Maybe
careful.
once or twice, maybe.
Yeah.
Otherwise,
Uh,
your
the
business,
advice is
useless.
be careful, but not
Hmm.
you don't go in and quickly check everything. And the interference would be
Huh.
to sit and police them and saying,
Huh.
"Oh my God, look at all this
Yeah.
dead food in your fridge." You know?
Yeah. Because I also plead guilty. I mean, I buy stuff, and then my husband has a tooth problem, so these things are not cooked or
Mm.
whatever, you know. So there is inevitably some amount of
Waste,
wastage, which
wastage.
I
Yeah.
feel terrible about, but it happens.
Yeah.
And then I stopped guilting myself so much about it. हो गया, ठीक है.
Yeah.
We try not to, but it happens.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Correct.
and
Correct. I think,
yes,
sorry.
the
Yeah.
financial world has changed enormously since the 90s
Yeah.
because I know on what tight budgets I used to live with my family.
Correct.
End to end, the month would be endless. The last couple of days till the next paycheck were like, oh my God, kaise
Correct.
hoga?
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, so
Yeah.
to be comfortable is something which I respect enormously. And
Mm. Mm.
also, you know, post COVID, I feel ठीक है हम लोगों ने जितना we made all the efforts in the world to be comfortable, to be safe, everything else.
Yeah.
I would hate it for to preach to people the importance of planning and this and that. Everything is important. Yes, you have to save, you have to be prudent, all
Yeah.
the rest of it.
Yeah.
But God forbid something happens. I mean, let them live.
Yeah. I think that is
Let them live.
that is this besides the new economy and all of that, there is this, I mean, we
It
have
has changed us.
been through a life-changing times, and so that
Yeah.
is and these are people who were what in their early 20s when all this happened. So
Yes, or even in their 30s, they've seen
yeah,
it. They've grown up in it.
correct.
My kid was 30 something when he had COVID, my youngest. I mean, 32 or something, maybe
Correct. Yeah.
30, 30, 31. So they've seen it as adults.
Yeah,
They know
that's right.
how frail our. I mean, at the same time, it doesn't mean that you don't save.
No,
My husband has
but
been
yeah,
very.
it is everybody has got a little shaken on the that life can be predictable, and if you do X, then your results will be sex. That is been
हाँ, वो
snatched
X
away.
is equal to
Yeah,
Y वो नहीं है.
yeah.
X leading to Y doesn't happen necessarily. So enjoy
Okay.
life, be prudent,
Yeah,
put your
yeah,
faith in God, keep your
yeah.
powder dry.
Correct.
वो सब चलेगा.
Yeah. Correct. Yeah. No, but one last thing on this is I feel we must also remember when our children ask us for advice, it's it's a it's a very big thing to cherish and to treat with respect and with gratitude that something in the equation is right, that they do feel, could you help me with this? on anything. It's very important.
Huge privilege.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
a
it's
huge privilege
yeah.
to
And
have
don't
that
take my
relationship.
company, it's privilege. Yeah, literally, it's a
Yeah,
privilege.
it's a privilege, literally.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah, sorry, Krish, are we running over time? Okay, let me announce next week's theme. We talk about everybody talks about managing change, and the theme next week is about what exactly goes into managing change. A lot of seniors feel that it just means, from the question that I've got, which next time I'll read, it just means that तुम चुप बैठो अभी accept करो सब अभी ये सब बदल गया है बैठो चुप से you have no say. But what does it mean to really manage change and to get onto that surfboard of change and go with the with the wind and the sea, even in your senior years? What goes into dealing with change is the theme for the next Wednesday, which is the 20. No, it's March, which is the March of 4th of March, not 4th, 5th of March is what we will be talking about. Yeah. Okay. Anything more? Anyone wants to add? I'll see you guys later and on the next Wednesday. And just one last thing before we close here is that when I announce the theme, if you want to give it thought yourself before you come into it, it'll be lovely because you'll come already with some ideas about just to meditate is too big a word, but just to dwell on this theme in your mind in the rest of the week will be very, very wonderful. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Krish, we are signing off. I'm signing off. We're done for today. Yeah.
Okay, ma'am.
Okay.
I'll
And
unmute you.
you put the details about the WhatsApp and all there. Great.
Yes, yes.
Thank you. Bye,
Okay.
Dipali.
Bye-bye.
Bye. See you.
Bye.